All right, a new Harris poll reveals that 56% of Americans believe the U.S. is experiencing a recession. 58% say that Biden's only made the economy worse. 72% think inflation is increasing.
So while the country hasn't hit the technical markers of a recession yet, it goes to show that the average American, they're hurting, and that Biden is woefully out of touch with Main Street America.
Yeah, meanwhile, a recent Bloomberg poll of swing state voters showed that nearly 2/3 were concerned about the cost of everyday goods. About a third were worried about health care costs and gas prices, and just over a quarter said housing costs were worry to them.
Yet while your wallet is getting lighter and lighter every time you swing by the old grocery store, old Joe, well, he's out playing favorites again with yet another student loan bailout. This time, it's worth a whopping $7.7 billion taxpayer dollars for about 160,000 borrowers.
Those people who didn't go to college, so they're not getting debt relief, the $35,000 that they don't get because they didn't go.
We're talking about folks who are in debt who are literally being crushed because they took,
literally being crushed. Let's be
financially. Okay, is that okay with you? Okay.
All right, joining us is former Assistant Treasury Secretary for Public Affairs and host of the Monica Crowley podcast, Monica Crowley, and Fox News contributor Tammy Bruce. Welcome to you both. Always great to see you. Monica, I want to start with you on this, sort of what they're doing with the border and how Americans feel. Compounded over time, let's just talk about grocery prices, roughly up 20% over the last 3+ years. That's what people feel when they go. More and more people putting their everyday expenses on credit cards and not necessarily able to make those payments in full. At the same time, you're taking doctors and lawyers and people who've gone to grad school and you're saying, we just want to we want to forgive your student loan debt. Those people actually are not being crushed. And all of this policy is further inflationary because it's just going to put more money into the system.
Well, that's exactly right. It's only going to exacerbate the inflationary cycle that we've found ourselves in over the last 3.5 years because of all of the out of control government spending done by Biden and the Democrat Congress when they had control. Look, this is about everybody's lived experience every single day. So whether it's going to the grocery store, whether it's going to the gas station and fill up your car, people cannot afford to make ends meet, and they are putting 2 and 2 together, and they're understanding that it is the government spending, it is the Democrats not reining in the size of government and the spending that is directly related to their cost of living crisis, right? So this is a 2-pillar election. This is a cost of living crisis, and it's also a quality of life crisis, and the two are related. So the cost of living, everyday items, young people in particular, which is why they're giving away the store on student loan debt relief, because they are hemorrhaging young people. Biden, the Democrats, young people, is a 30-point swing away from Biden toward Donald Trump. That is astonishing. They're trying to buy votes with our money, but they're also trying to attract people they have nothing else to sell, right? Beyond using taxpayer money to do this. And the quality of life issue is directly related because it's the wide open border, it's the collapse of our cities, it's spiking crime. All of these things are coming together in a perfect storm for President Trump to win re-election.
Tammy, as Americans, we're talking about this, Americans are hurting. They feel like we're in a recession. So it may technically not be a recession, but they feel in their own lives it's a recession. And here you have billions of dollars being spent on student loan bailouts, $150 billion being spent on illegal immigrants coming into communities. And I think most Americans look around and go, I can't afford to live. I'm making decisions between my rent, my medication, and my food. And you have all this money for these other people that aren't struggling like I am. And I think it's making a lot of Americans angry at Democrats and their wasteful spending on people who don't live the experience, to Monica's point, of the average American.
Yeah, so this doesn't require watching the news all day long or going to in a seminar at Stanford to figure out what's going on with the economy and even why. It's exactly what you've said. Even if you just glance at the news, pick up a newspaper, you're hearing about the nature of what the priorities are. And the priorities are not middle-class Americans, average Americans. It's not even poor Americans. It's not even the veterans who are sleeping on the street. They're not getting hotel rooms in New York. It's not people who are just desperately poor, who are not, looking for refugee status. And if it's Americans or human beings having a problem, But America, it's just like the airplane. If there's a problem on the airplane and the oxygen mask comes down, it says, you know, put yours on first before you help other people. America is, you want to talk about getting crushed? America is literally getting crushed right now because of the way that money is being spent and the signaling to Americans where there's a hopelessness and a depression that occurs, which then affects a willingness to spend, to be consumers, to have optimism for the future, to have another child, to, you know, you can't buy a house right now. Will you ever be able to buy a house? The depression, the mental depression that happens as people retreat from life is shocking. And then you see illegal aliens in New York, as an example, getting debit cards with at least twice the amount of money that Americans who are on welfare are getting. Why the difference? And I think that this is what's being signaled from the Democrats, that regular Americans, they don't want us in their soup. We are a problem. We have power. We are voters. And that's the thing that they're still punishing us for Trump. They want to punish us still. And lastly, the student loan redistribution of wealth. Some people in the Biden administration may realize he's a lame duck. And this is the last chance to distribute as much money as possible into the environment, into the arena.
Well, let's move to this, too, because this is a really interesting point. Washington Post columnist is now arguing that it's actually Donald Trump that would raise taxes, not Biden.
But it doesn't look like swing state voters agree. According to a new Bloomberg Morning Consult poll, 46% of respondents say they trust Trump to handle taxes as opposed to just 37% for Biden. And I guess that would make sense, right, Monica? Because Donald Trump actually worked with Republicans to lower every American's taxes. Joe Biden's threatening to raise everybody's taxes.
Well, that's exactly right. So I spent 2 years at the Treasury Department under President Trump, and I got there after the passage of the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, which was signed into law in late 2017. And it lowered marginal tax rates for every single income group. It lowered the corporate tax rate, and what happened? It generated an economic boom. You give people more of their own money back, and they're going to pump it back into the economy. They're going to start small businesses. They're going to pump it into the economy, spending, consumer spending, et cetera. So it did generate a boom, just like every tax cut always does. And the irony is that when you cut taxes, you get more revenue into the Treasury to pay for all of the left's beloved social programs, right? So Donald Trump cut everybody's taxes in the biggest tax cut in American history. Joe Biden is out there actually running on the idea of raising everybody's taxes by multi-trillions of dollars. And that is across the board. He claims it's just for the wealthy, for their fair share. That is not true. Everybody's taxes will go up. And by the way, if you don't get President Trump back in office with a Republican Congress, that Tax Cuts and Jobs Act actually sunsets. It expires next year, which means automatically everybody's taxes will go up.
The inflationary tax that everyone's been paying for goods and services over the last 3 years. And also when it comes to corporate taxes, you know what's going to happen when their taxes go up, Monica? They're going to fire people. They're going to fire people, and we're really going to get deeper into this, Tammy.
Yeah, and comparing also that to the new minimum wage dynamic for also the franchisees, you know, service industry, businesses beyond major corporations. So people are getting fired because of that movement, if you will. There'll be layoffs when you're looking at the nature of what taxes are. But you see, we know this, right? This is not a surprise. And the good news is the Trump administration was, close enough to where we are the same people who experience the difference. And I think why Trump is trusted in this regard is because we did have a better economy with him, but also, whether you liked it or not, you knew he was being honest with you. Right. With everything with Biden, you know you're being gaslit. The border is closed. Trump's going to raise taxes. We're trying to close the border. All of that is a lie. And Americans realize now we know what being gaslight is. We know, at least with Trump, sometimes you don't like what he says, but my goodness, he's the same guy. You know what you're getting. He loves the country, and his decisions are based in that formula.
Well, it begs the question that 36% who believe Joe Biden's better on taxes, where do they get their news from? I don't know, but I do want to get you guys' take on this because fired FBI Director James Comey resorted to fear-mongering when asked about a potential second Trump term on MSNBC yesterday, all while hawking his new book. Watch.
He is a threat to the rule of law in America. If he has the ability smarter than he was last time to use the power of the Department of Justice and the FBI to target his enemies especially, the rule of law in America will change in a way we haven't seen in our lifetime.
I hear this and I'm like, this is the pot calling the kettle black. Is he kidding me right now, Monica? I want to get you both on this real quick.
Yeah, no, he's making these comments as Donald Trump is sitting in a Stalinist show trial in Lower Manhattan, right? Look, now that we're getting closer to the election and Donald Trump is leading pretty much across the board, all of the regime snakes are coming out from under their rocks, including James Comey. The left are masters of projection, of accusing the other side and the other players of what they themselves are doing and what they themselves are guilty of. This is an exact case in point.
Roger Stone,
to get more of it.
Peter Navarro, Steve Bannon, Paul Manafort, George Papadopoulos, Rick Gates, all Trump guys, all prosecuted by Joe Biden.
Hundreds of January 6 defendants. Now, of course, you've got even the Supreme Court and other federal courts looking at the nature of that. But I'll bring you back to something that Comey said directly. If Trump is smarter than he was before, he'll use the DOJ. That's what he said in that clip. So in other words, it's been weaponized to such a point that now he's saying, well, if Trump knows that he can use the DOJ to do this, that is unacceptable. But that is the norm now. That they've normalized the weaponization of the DOJ to where Comey, who looks like he needed to put on a tie and get some sleep, by the way, I hope he's been losing some, is saying if Trump is smarter than he was before, effectively bragging about the fact that Trump was naive to the idea that you could use that department. Well, we now know what they do. It is still not going to be used in that way. And Trump is just the beginning. This is the start, and we will not go back again. We did that once. It'll not happen again.
Hear, hear. Monica, Tammy, thank you for being with us.
Great to see you.
We don't have any opinions. Thank you.
None at all. That was great. All right.